Hey guys, welcome back. I've recently uploaded this game up onto my web server, and I came across a problem. Problem being is when we look at the items and there's no items available, we get a for each error because there's nothing populating them arrays. So I'm just going to fix this. So we'll open up the item list plugin, and we come down to these for each loops. So before we actually run our for each loop, we need to check to make sure that there is something within the array. So what we need to do is we just need to run an if command, and we'd say if the count of compounds is more than 0, then run the for each loop. And we can put an else statement on there, else we'll just echo out no compounds in your inventory. So now when we come refresh this, it says here that we've got no compounds in your inventory. What we'll say was just no compounds found. And we're going to do the same thing for our stabilizers. So if the count of our stabilizers is more than 0, then we want to run the for each loop. Else we're just going to print out this same statement, just say stabilizers. Let me just indent that. So that fixes our little problem if we have no stabilizers or compounds within our inventory list. Again, we've got the same problem here with our refinery. So I'm just going to do the same thing. What do we want? We want PHP tags. If count compounds is more than 0, then we want to execute this whole chunk here. So if there's not any compounds found while in the refinery, it just doesn't actually display any compounds whatsoever, not even the headering. So I'm going to do the same thing on this one. Except we're going to replace that like so. Now we've got no errors and nothing's displaying on our compounds list. So now we're going to get back on track, and we're going to go back over to a refine function, where we're actually going to give an item or give a raw material to a player. So I'm just going to go fill up my inventory again, so I'll be back shortly. Okay, so I've bulked up my inventory list a bit. So now we're actually going to give an item to a player, and this is where the box comes in that appears down here, the button. So I'll just add all my items to my refinery to make this raw material. Sorry, I had a massive mind blank then. And stabilizer V. Something's not quite right here. I'm sure we done more than this. We'll be back in a moment. Okay, I've had a moment of madness. If you remember, it only reacts to us dropping, finishing the complete recipe within the compounds section. So, yeah, this is carrying on from not the last video, but the video before, where it produces the name of the material in the box there, and brings up our make material button. So what I'm going to do is just copy this and replace that. So hopefully this will work when the final material is dropped in from both the stabilizers and the compounds. I can't actually see the stabilizer I need. Okay, so drop that in there, and then we have it. We have our box appear with the name of the raw material we're going to make, and the button which says make material. So now we're going to program this make material button. So we'll start a new function, call it make material. We want to copy, we'll take this whole section here, because we're going to be doing pretty much the same thing. We're going to be checking to make sure that the materials that we've put in create a raw material. So we're going to need to rename this the mode. So we're going to say we'll say refine material, and I think we'll rename this as well. Say refine material, name the function. So else if the posted mode equals refine material, and we're just going to take this whole section here again, but instead of echoing out the row name, or the name of the row, we're going to perform some more checks within this if statement. So I'll just go put them in, and I'll discuss them afterwards. Okay, so after much messing about, trial and error, I've finally managed to work out how to sort of easily check the quantities against what's the quantities of your items against what's needed to create the material. and this is the code right here. So what we're doing is we're grabbing the compound stabilizer IDs, and we're running the check to make sure that the IDs that we're using create a material, just like we did up here when we're checking to see what material was created. So if the number of rows returned is more than 0, so if there is an ID, you know, if there is a raw material match, we create a new array here called materials, and we're storing each of the compounds inside of this array. And what we're then doing is we're creating another array here called quantities, and we're using the function array count values, and we counting the unique or the values, sort of like how many times a value appears inside of a inside of the array. So if compound 1 and 2 are the same, it would return that the compound ID would return as 2 rather than 2 individual compound IDs. If you can search this this function for to try and get a proper understanding of it. It's hard to sort of explain. I'm then setting a value variable of fail to false just for now. And then what we're doing is we're running a for each on the quantities array, and we're separating the keys and the values of that array. We're then running a query, and we're taking the material quantity from the user materials where the material ID equals the key, which would be the compound ID, and the material type where it's compound, and the character ID where we've got our session CID. We're limiting it to 1. We're executing the query and storing the objects into an mQuantity variable. And then what we're saying is if the mQuantity material quantity value is less than the v variable, which would be the amount of a certain ID which is needed. So if we haven't got enough of that quantity of that material, then we're setting our fail variable to true, which would mean that the compound mix, we can't create the raw material because we haven't got enough items to create it. So if we go back over to the site or to the game, and I'll show you one where we will pass the quantity, the check, or we would originally create a raw material. So we place in our compounds, if I can find them all, which I can't seem to do. Try. Oh, I'm looking for the wrong one. Gallium. And as you notice, we have enough of each of these materials, or because otherwise they wouldn't show up for a start. And Tricium. There we go. So when we click make material, we'll get a return of true, no, of false, because we won't be failing the check. Now if I do one where I know I'm going to fail, so we put nodium in there, area up there. Now, our gelatin compound, we've only got one of them, so we can only use it once, but the the compound I'm going to make actually requires two. So when we put two of them in there, you can see here that the quantity is now on -1. So now when we go to make our axonite material, we'll get return of true, because we will be failing the check to see if to make sure we've got enough of each material. So that's that check. That's all the code that's needed for that check. We're just comparing quantities needed to our quantities contained within our inventory. So once we've run this check, what I'll do is I'll actually return these to our values, or a boolean values. So then if fail equals false, which means we haven't failed the initial test, what we're going to do is we're going to use our functions we created in our last video. So we'll just include that there, and we're going to have a look to see what those function names were. Take materials. Where are you? There you are. So for each, now we're going to use the materials array as, and we only need the values for these. Bung it in there. So our character ID is obviously our session CID. Material ID will be our V variable, and the material type is compound. So that will take our 4 materials away. We're then going to want to take, let's do this, take materials, and the value of this is going to be our stab variable, and we're going to take a stabilizer. We're going to give materials, and we want our character ID again, and the material that we're going to give is going to be the ID of the raw material that we've just pulled out. So we need row ID, and the material type I think is just raw. So say it's raw. Then for now we'll just echo out our fail statement. We'll come back over to our refine plugin, and on the success message we'll just say if message equals false, else we'll just alert saying material crafted, and alert material craft fail. I know we're not crafting, we're actually refining, but it'll do for now. So when we come back over to user materials, we'll be able to see shortly that we'll have a raw material inside of this table. Just refresh everything. Can't make that one. Okay, so we'll make this this raw material. Bear with me. So now when we go make material, it says materials crafted. We come back over to here, and we'll just go to use materials, and we'll search where the material type equals raw, and there we have it. The material ID is 3. So if we go to raw materials, the ID of 3 is Christonium, and that's exactly what we've just crafted. So there's nothing sort of too taxing on getting your refines working. We can also, on a successful refine, which I'm not going to do on video here, is we can take all these boxes and wipe them out. So anyone wanting, you have to re-put in all your materials to create another raw material. So I'm going to end this video here. It's been a bit longer than all the others, but I had quite a bit to go into. In the next video, we're going to add our raw materials to our items list, and we're also going to look at receiving extracts from crafted materials as well. So I'll see you in the next video.